Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Christine and I would like to start talking about books. I know it's weird. If you've been around this channel for some reason, you're still subscribed. I haven't posted for like 6 years or so, and that's because, well, there was a big apocalypse thing happening around the world, and at the same time I became a teacher and I started teaching. And if you are a teacher or you have teachers in your life, you know that takes all of your life. That's kind of it. But I have been wanting to start making videos again for at least a few years, and there were some things that I have discussed with like students of mine about talking about the books that we do in class and other books that I read. I always tell them what I read. I have a post like behind me where I sit in school that says like Mrs. currently reading this book, and they tend to ask me about those things. So while that's not something that I do have time to go into in class too much, it is something that I do want to talk about. And then if there are other things that, again, I can't really go into in depth in class, but I might want to do that separately, or like say, look, I always send you to watch videos online, and I send them to watch Mr. Braff or Stacy Rie. I don't know if I said her name right, but she's a teacher on YouTube and she does like grade 8, grade 9 content. And I always tell them like they are really good ones, but also like I have ideas. I have a master's in literature. I have a lot of things that sometimes like you don't have enough time to say in class, and I would like to have some videos that I can say, hey, go and look at this video that I made on this, and I'm talking about that for like 2 hours. I'm not saying this video will be 2 hours long, although I don't know how long it's gonna be. I know that I've been liking watching video essays for the last like several years, and I watch a lot of booktube, a lot of like essays on different topics, like from science, from whatever. So I would like to have that as content. And I know that every year all the new students find my channel and they're like, well, it's empty, there's like a video of Highgate Cemetery and kind of nothing else. And I always tell them, yeah, I will put analysis videos, I will put like videos to help you, and I haven't done that until now, so there it is. So this is not going to be a full like teaching channel all the time. It is going to be things that we do at school. It is going to be some help with like GCSE content or Key Stage 3, maybe some videos helpful for teachers with like things that I've learned over the last 6 years, and it will be like more years as we go. And then also book reviews of books that I like reading, because I don't read just school books. Obviously I read through a variety of categories, and I would like to talk about that as well. And the other thing that you will see in this channel is journaling and book journaling as well, which I've been doing. So I have my reading journal, for example, that's from Archer and Olive, and it's pink. This is the main thing, like pink. And I also have another journal. This is my daily one, and this, like, it might look a little bit shit, I don't know if you can see. I dressed it with like the cover, the sticker cover paper, and it has bunched up a lot, and you will see that in some of my books. I do that to school books. But anyway, so I do like my book reviews in my daily journal, and then I keep the stats in the reading journal. And this year so far, for example, I have gone through, I think it's like 60 something books, if I find it, which it should be easy because it's like right there, but okay, that's just me. 67 books. So 67 books, not all of them were big and not all of them were good, but I would like to talk about these books. And I like these things, and some of these books are for school, some of them are like school books. We do book 1 and then I go and read the rest of them, and I would like to talk about them. That's also like a thing, like we do the Raybearer in school, which I will talk about in a minute, but I would like to also go and talk about the Redemptor and the Maid and the Crocodile, because these came out and I don't teach them, but I reference them, and then I can talk about them in detail here. So if this is a channel that has stayed like in the back of your subscriptions for 6 years, being pretty dead, or you had come here for like fashion and now it's gonna be books and literature, I'm not gonna say I'm sorry. I will say thank you for being here, and you can choose if you want to stay or not. There might be some fashion, but it might be like school appropriate outfits for teachers, or like what you can wear that still like follows the dress code policy, but you're not boring and in a suit all day. First year I was teaching, I had gotten pretty much black trousers, black blazers, and I was like that. And then now I'm like, no, I would like to dress like Lady Macbeth, or like I'm one of the ghosts from Christmas Carol, but like still within the policy. So there might be some of that. If the framing looks a little bit different, it's because I didn't realize my card was full and I had to go and fix it. So we're getting back to the content of this video, which you should have seen from the title, is books that we actually teach. I will make a different one with books that we no longer teach and why that is, but I wanted to start with the things that we do teach. And what are these books and why are they being taught? Within a school setting, you have the option to teach full books, you have the option to teach extracts from different books, you can do poetry, and you can do creative writing, writing in general, you can do transactional, which you have to eventually for GCSE, and then you have to teach the GCSE books, where the Shakespeare, like, that you've done before needs to lead up to it. So I've split the books kind of in how we do them and why, and then like it will make sense, but not everything that we teach is a full book. So in this video I will talk about things that we teach in full, and then touch upon a little bit on Shakespeare because that's slightly different, and then I will make another video with books that we teach extracts from, all the different stories and where these extracts fit together, and then I will make another video with books that we used to teach but we no longer teach and explain why we do that. So the first book you would do if you join the school where I teach would be Private Peaceful. This is by Michael Morpurgo. You might have heard Warhorse, he's written that, and a lot of primary schools also teach Warhorse, so there are students who come in and already are familiar with who the writer is. They have either studied Warhorse or have done it. There are some students that come in having done this book in particular, but these are less than what you would get having done Warhorse. Either way, like I have had students come in and they say, I've met the writer, he's come to our primary, or I went and met him somewhere else, or I've gone to the areas that he's talking about for World War I. So this story follows three siblings. It's mostly following the youngest one, Tomo, as he's growing up, and this book is this book is written in an interesting way where you have a countdown over one particular night during the war. So he starts at the start of the night, he's in a barn, and he says like, over this night I need to tell you the story of everything that has happened. So he goes to his childhood, and it's the titles counting down the clock. So like if you see chapter 1, for example, instead of chapter 1 it says 10:05, and it goes up to 6 in the morning where a big thing is about to happen. So we get to see like a start of chapter extract every chapter where it's like what's happening now in the barn, separated by some butterflies, and then after is like a part from his childhood. In his childhood we have the oldest brother, who is Big Joe, who has a disability. He is mentally disabled because he had meningitis when he was a baby, so he's disabled throughout the entire book, and the boys judge everybody based on how they treat Big Joe. So it has an interesting disability rep. You get more of like the early 1900s attitude towards like disabled people. So there is the not villain, but he's like the bad guy when they were kids, who says like put him in an asylum and get rid of him, he's a burden. And everybody in the family, they're like, no, we're not doing that, we love him, we will find a way to work around and help him live a full life as much as possible. So it's a good lesson on disability that you do on this character, talking about that and the attitudes and how they've changed. And then as they grow up, we have the middle brother, who is Charlie, who gets with a girl, and then Tomo is the youngest brother, and he's also in love with this girl. The war comes up, they go to the war, both of the brothers, Charlie and Tomo, and then at that point, like, Charlie has married the girl, and they obviously you worry like who's going to die, because it is sad. So like lessons that you can do around this book are about World War One. If you do for GCSE Power and Conflict, for AQA, you have a lot of context on the war, on how people felt, on the families that will come into analyzing that poetry. So obviously the kids will forget about everything between year 7 and year 11, so you want to make it very, very clear when you're teaching this that this is to get those themes, to understand about half the poems of the Power and Conflict part, the war, the soldiers, the families, but also like familial relationships and love and growing up, maturing, and then also like bravery and courage and what that means. So it works really well. It is a good book. It's an easy one to get into. The plot is fairly self-explanatory, but you can also like go into symbolism. There's a line that says that Tomo sees a bee and he says, we're very much alike, bee. You might carry your pack underneath and I carry it in my bag, and you have your like stinger and I have my rifle, but we're very much alike. And that's also like a really nice writing task that we do, and we look at like the symbolism of the bee being part of the hive, defending the hive, having someone else giving the orders, versus like the soldiers who are again like equipped, they're supporting the country, they're going to defend their country, they get orders from above, who gives these orders and all of that. And the book is also about the soldiers that were executed for cowardice and what that meant. They were only pardoned like years after. There are a lot of interesting things to discuss, historical, family-wise, equality, and yeah, it's overall a really, really good book. The second book I'm going to talk about is called Boys Don't Cry. It's by Mallory Blackman, and this is a book about a boy who's just doing his A-levels, he's finished them, he's waiting for the results, and instead of the results, his ex-girlfriend comes in with a baby, which is his, and she leaves the baby with him, and so his whole life is now just gone, basically. And then we find out how he got all these like A-stars. And now he has to raise the baby, and he's got a brother, so this is dual POV. Half of the story is about Dante, who has to raise the baby, and then we have his brother Adam, who is gay, and he starts dating this guy who is closeted, and eventually he beats him up and disfigures him completely because he didn't want people to find out about being closeted. So this is to look at themes about masculinity, about parenthood, about what it means to have these responsibilities as essentially a teenager, about like being gay and coming out and what that entails, and relationships and how they can work. And then also like the family is black, which isn't explicitly said until about like halfway through the book. So a lot of the times I teach this book and then the students don't even realize that this is a black family and it's a single parent family. The mother has died and it's just the father raising them on his own. So how I personally tell them from the start, like, these are black characters, because it is important to look at like these are not just situations that happen outside race. Part of how the family deals with this is from like racial biases and expectations and what that means for the characters. So once like the students talk about the characters, it's like, yeah, this is not just a gay male, it's a gay black male, and that has different connotations and experiences than a white gay male. So it's a very interesting book. The kids tend to enjoy it. Some classes understand it better than others, and they might have more insightful things. If you were thinking of teaching this, like some issues that do come up when we teach it is that some families have taught their kids about like sexuality, pregnancy, about being gay, about relationships, different families, and they already know these things, but you will have students coming in and not understanding, like, wait, how are babies made? And it does say, like, oh, we were at a party, things happened, and then, like, things happen. It's not explicit, but it does kind of say, oh, it was like 5 minutes and now my whole life is different. So you will get questions around this topic, and you have to think about how to approach it, knowing your class, knowing your school, your context, and all of that. The next book that students do, that's in year 9. This is called The Raybearer. It's written by Jordan Ifueko, and it is a fantasy. It came out a few years back, so this is like one of the more modern books that they do, probably the most modern books that they do. So the main character, Tarisai, has the power to touch people and see their memories, and all of the children, when the emperor is about 10 years old, or the emperor's son, who's gonna be the next emperor, he's about 10 years old, they pick all the children up from around the country. This is a fictional country called Aritsar, and it's made of other, like, smaller countries that resemble real world cultures but are not like exact matches. There's like an Eastern one, there's one that sounds a lot like France, there's one that sounds like Latin America mix, some that look like African mix, a lot of them. And the main character is black, and a lot of the main ones are black, but there are some that are like white or Asian, but it's not on this earth. So this is heavily inspired by African mythology. So if you are going to teach it, what you want to do is research which of the elements here that are the fantasy, magic, and all of that are coming from real beliefs, cultural traditions, and all of that, or if they are made up by the writer. So knowing which is important, because you will be asked if you are teaching this, or if you're reading it as a reader independently for your own sake. You should look some of these up, because it's not all made up. It is a lot of them from cultural traditions. So themes that you would have here is having a strong female character and a black female character as a main protagonist, which is part of the reason we picked this, because our context is mostly black, and we wanted to, and it's a boys' school, so we wanted to have a good, like, strong female protagonist in the selection. So you have Tarisai, and she is secretly the Raybearer. So the society is organized that the emperor has a son and passes down this magical thing called the Ray. But then actually the conspiracy is that there is also a female Ray, which was the emperor's sister, the original emperor who got the Ray, and that was being passed down through the female line, but the emperors hid it and made it so that nobody knew that there were female Ray bearers, and if there was one, they would hide her away. So Tarisai will be selected, she will be on the council, and then the emperor's son, he will find out that she's also Raybearer, and they will at the end rule together. So it is a really good book. All the characters are quite lovable, even like the mother, who is presented as the villain, and for most of the book you're like, oh, she, like, you hate her, she's evil, and then you get her side of the story later on and you're like, wait, she's not actually evil, she's been hurt, like, there is justification. So a lot of good lessons come from understanding, like, we understand why you did this, but is this excused or not? Are you right? Are you justified for your actions or not? So good and evil, right or wrong, are big in this book. Also, like, the cooperation, the gender influences, power, and how that is presented. Religion as well is kind of a theme, and beliefs and all of that. And there are the inspirations from religion do offer a good exploration of cultural capital that you want to do. And this has 2 books after that. So Redemptor, where Tarisai is getting ready for another adventure. She has to go to the underworld and save, like, every child that is being sacrificed to the demons. And then there's the 3rd book, which is not a continuation of Tarisai's story, but it is a new girl, and in that 3rd book we see the poor of the country. So even if you read Raybearer and you weren't sure about Redemptor, like The Maid and the Crocodile is completely different, and I think it's a good pairing, because when you read this book you see like, oh, it's the emperor in the palace with the 11, and they're braiding their hair and they're having expensive fabrics and foods, and everything seems like a really abandoned country. And then when you read The Maid and the Crocodile, where you see the poor people, and it's like, well, this girl has to be a cleaner, she has to sweep, she has to work for everything she has. Like, reading and talking about books and being an intellectual is seen as not for poor people. And you see, like, because it's in the same like country, you see that they mention Tarisai as someone who is scary, who wanted to upturn society, that she wanted to make education available to everybody and girls, and send people to school and take things that were like the emperor's and give them to the people. And the people were so afraid of that, and trying to deal with, like, well, you have to go to school, but also like you need money, you need a place, and not everyone is able to access things that are there. So it does make a pretty good social commentary. And the main character there is a black girl with vitiligo, and that's also like interesting representation of like how she thinks of herself versus how other people see her. So these are really good books, and these are actually enjoyable. If you were wondering about modern books that you would like to teach in your school, I would suggest this one. People have been really happy with that, the kids like it. It's just a bit long, so a lot of your lesson will be reading, but it has very interesting discussions coming off it, so it has been really enjoyable to teach. The next story that we teach is kind of cheating, but you'll see what I mean. So this is the Crucible, and I don't have the physical book with me at the moment, but I have the script, because instead of doing it fully in order, we do it in extracts, and we do it like mixed up. So the first thing we do is watch the play in its entirety, so we understand the plot, and then I designed the scheme to be split into themes. So you have your witchcraft context, and I put extracts from throughout the play, instead of we are reading and then we found something and then we're doing a lesson on it and then we find it again later, but we've already done the lesson, so we are not doing that. So what I wanted to do is focus it on themes and pick themes that you see back in your GCSEs, because they are doing this in year 8, but these themes return, and the way that I wanted to put that is like how you would revise when you're in year 11 instead, so they have an idea of how to do this. So I did my planning for this year using the journal to separate what we're doing. So lesson 1 and 2, watch the play. Lesson 3, starting with the supernatural, the witch trials, same for lesson 4. Then there's a lesson on religion, then 3 lessons on the Red Scare to understand like the political side of it, then talking about freedom of speech, and I can go into the political and the religious side of freedom of speech, then social power in regards to colonial life, instability that can come from that, and gender dynamics and who has power in that society. Then specifically, explicitly gender, looking at Abigail, Mary and Elizabeth are like main 3 female characters, and then looking at relationships and marriage, and then looking at race with Tituba, who is really interesting as a character, because like obviously in the play she's black and you can talk about what that means, but then also the historical Tituba, who was not black but she was indigenous, probably they're like Native American or Hispanic Native American, and then she was sold into the Caribbean in slavery, and then she was brought to Salem. And then at the very end, like looking at the theme of power, which was running through the rest of the lessons, but looking at like who has the most power, the least power, ranking the characters and looking at that. So if you were then looking at the GCSE texts, power is a big theme across all the texts that we teach. So having done something around that and grouping extracts together is a skill that will be needed later. Now looking at plays. I am going to start with Shakespeare and what Shakespeare thinks we do and why we're doing them. So in year 7 we are doing a bit of The Tempest and a bit of Midsummer Night's Dream, but this is like very extract based. There's like 3 extracts and it's more about like learning about Shakespeare, learning about the globe and what that means. So it's not so much analyzing the language, which is why I'm not getting into those two. They're nice, but it's more like learn some context over like 3 weeks. What we're actually doing properly is Romeo and Juliet. So I have the book, even though again we are doing it through extracts, but a lot more extracts. So they are going through the entire storyline. It's just in like more bits. So obviously Romeo and Juliet is a really famous story, most people know about it. So Romeo is from one family, Juliet is from the other, they can't be together. The bunch of people kill each other in the feud, and then they miscommunicate big time by Juliet faking her death, Romeo thinking that she's really dead. Anyway, so he himself, and then she does the same as well when she wakes up. And so you're supposed to learn about family, about feuds, about violence, about male and female portrayals, about love, light and dark as themes and symbols, and animal symbols, and magic as well. A little bit. There's the belief in fairies and some of that. So some of these come back in Macbeth, some of these come back like maybe in the poetry with the love. So it is a good story to know. Our next Macbeth text that we do is Othello. So Othello, again, we do sometimes we have taught it in extracts, sometimes we have taught it like fully, but then had to cut down a lot. So at any point with any play, we will see the whole play. So you always watch the full play, but we might then analyze specific extracts. So for Othello, you have this black general who is also, on that note, recently black. In the play it says Moor, which was like Northern Africa, but also Arabic, and you have to talk about like the historical and what kind of race originally that would have implied. But most recently Othello has been portrayed as black, played by black actors. So it's good to examine both, and you look at original audience, modern audience, how the character is portrayed and what that means and what has changed in the interpretation of the character. But anyway, so he's a great general, he's in Venice, and he falls in love with this white woman, and he steals her at night. They run away, they get married, her father gets angry but gets over it, and then they are sent to Cyprus, where Othello is going to take charge and help in a war that is happening. So they get to Cyprus, and his main antagonist is Iago, and Iago thinks he should have gotten the job for second in command, but instead Cassio got the job. So Iago is jealous about the job. He's made up some rumors that Othello slept with his wife Emilia, which isn't true, but he says he doesn't care if it's true or not. He thinks it, so he will like get revenge. And he also wants money, so he fools a bunch of people and makes Othello think that Desdemona is cheating on him, and at the end like Othello kills her and kills himself, and like lots of people die throughout. So in there, again, you look at relationships, you look at race, representation, manipulation. Again, this manipulation from Iago comes back for Lady Macbeth in Macbeth. You look at the portrayal of someone as a brave general and how they can be corrupted, which again comes back in Macbeth. So a lot of these are to talk about some themes of power and violence and manipulation and gender that will come back in Macbeth. And talking about coming back in Macbeth. So Macbeth is one of the GCSE texts. It's a GCSE Shakespeare text. So you have Macbeth. He is a brave general, a valiant man, these are quotes, valiant cousin, worthy gentleman, brave Macbeth. So he just finished winning a battle. He sees 3 witches, they tell him like, you're gonna be king, and then he thinks, well, if I was gonna be king, the current king needs to die. Oh no, I shouldn't think about that. but also like what if. He tells his wife is like, yeah, kill the king, obviously that's the whole point. So he goes and kills the king and then becomes king, and he kills a bunch of other people, including like children, families, servants, like everybody. And by the end he's called a dead butcher. The old king's son is growing an army. One of the other generals goes and joins him, and they go and they fight Macbeth, and Macbeth is killed at the end. So you look at power, corruption, manipulation, religion, witchcraft, the great chain of being. You look at like light and dark, so a lot of things I just said for like a few of the previous texts, and you look at them and how they're presented in this, and how it can apply for original and modern audience, about violence, about like having a purpose for the violence or not. So it's a really good text, and out of the Shakespeare ones that we teach, I like this the most. I think it has the most to analyze, and it has a lot of religious references, which is my strong point. So like when I was talking about the Crucible, supernatural, witchcraft, religion was like where my best lessons were. Politics, I had the help from one of the other teachers who knew Red Scare and things like that better. So yeah, so that's the GCSE Shakespeare requirement. And then the other two GCSE books that we do are Inspector Calls and Christmas Carol. Right, so Inspector Calls play politics. You talk about socialism versus capitalism. You talk about the rich versus the poor, the bourgeoisie, the proletariat, all of those like key words. You have a family who are rich, they're middle class, factory owners. They're celebrating the daughter's engagement with another guy who has the like opposite factory, and they want to do a monopoly by marrying their children, and then they have like monopoly over the whole thing. So an inspector comes in, he says, there's this dead woman that was found and you are all guilty, and he interviews each one to prove that everything they did in their interactions with her contributed to her death. The father of the family who owned the factory fired her, then the daughter got her fired from the next job that she got. The fiance that she's marrying, Gerald, had her as a mistress for a while and then dismissed her and kicked her out of the flat that he was keeping her in. She then met the son of the family and he got her pregnant, and then they broke up, and then she went to the wife's charity to ask for help, and she kicked her out as well without any help. So then the woman kills herself. And so the point is to prove that everybody contributed, and the main image and symbol of this is the chain. We are all like parts of the same body. There is a chain of events and everybody is linked together, everybody is responsible. So main themes around social responsibility, but you also have the class, the gender, and what that meant, and those are conflicts and power imbalances in society. So this has a very clear socialist message on Priestley wants a better society, and he writes after World War II, but he sets it in 1912, right before the Titanic sinks, which is also a symbol of the high class and their arrogance that is about to be destroyed through the two world wars. So the message is like post-World War they had the chance to build a better future, and that's what he wanted people to do. And then you look at like modern interpretations of like we still have a lot of the similar problems, we still haven't fixed the issues, and this is why the play is still relevant today. So Priestley wanted something, didn't really happen, but there are these problems. Now what's interesting is obviously pairing this with A Christmas Carol, which is very, very short, which is good. It's good because you get a lot of descriptions in this one. Like I find Macbeth is the easiest one to learn quotes from because you have like a lot of motifs. So you talk about the motif of blood, about light and dark, good and evil, the weather, bravery turned into savagery, tyrant is repeated. So you have a lot of repeated keywords. This one has a lot of like standout quotes and lessons, very explicit social responsibility lessons. So again, easy to learn things. You don't get any quotes from that. You do get from Macbeth an extract, and you get extracts for Christmas Carol. So this one has very long descriptions that are really hard to like remember by heart. So you can talk about like some themes and some motifs in this one as well, but it is good that it is a smaller one, because some longer quotes you do need to learn them, and they are a bit harder to learn. So I think everyone knows the story. I might be wrong, I hope I'm not wrong. I've been watching this since I was in primary. Every year the teachers would play us the exact same movie, so I must have seen it like hundreds of times in my life. But also I've read it like several times as I teach it. So Scrooge is an old man that cared about money most of his life. His business partner died about a year ago, and the ghost of him comes on Christmas Eve and tells him like, look at me with these chains and money boxes around me. Humanity was my business and I didn't do what I needed to do, and I focused on money, and you will be the same if you don't change, and I'm gonna send you 3 spirits over 3 nights. So first night is like Christmas Eve. He gets the Christmas past spirit. He shows him his childhood, mistakes he's made, and where like he went wrong in his life. He starts breaking down. He shows some emotions. He's crying. He's remembering his dead sister, the fiance that he broke up with, the life that he could have had. Second ghost comes in, and this is Christmas present, so it's supposed to be on Christmas Day, because now it's like the second day. There is time travel, but it's not explicitly a time travel book, which is interesting because like the original thing is in 3 nights, but it all happens within the one same night, so he does have the chance to change by Christmas. So he sees the Christmas day that he was going to live through. He doesn't know that he won't miss it, and he doesn't miss it, but he sees the day that would be happening tomorrow morning, and he goes through it. He sees everyone he knows with their families. They're all happy, they are enjoying their life without him, and he understands that he wanted to be part of that. And also he sees people who are really poor or all over the country. They all celebrate and they don't need the money to be happy and have love. And then he sees the ghost of Christmas yet to come. So the Christmas yet to come ghost shows him his grave. He shows him people talking about him being dead, his own dead body, and he says, okay, nobody cares about me, nobody cares about the grave, nobody is doing anything, nobody's sad that I died. In fact, some people are celebrating. So he decides that actually, yeah, I need to change, like help me, I will do anything. And the quote like at the end is, I will keep Christmas in my heart and throughout the year and all of that. So he wakes up, he realizes he didn't miss Christmas, so this is where the time travel comes in, even though it's not like called the time travel story. And he goes and he raises the salary of his employee. He goes to his nephew's house, he joins them, and this is all about like the spirit of Christmas, love, family, religion, and he gives charity to the poor. And this is where like the comparison of those two is interesting, because Charles Dickens is not saying the system is broken. Priestley says the system is broken, the rich and the poor are in conflict with each other, but it is the fault of the system and people can change how we build society. Dickens says the rich have too much and they're not giving to the poor and the poor are struggling, but it's not the system, it's the rich that need to give to charity. So he's not seemingly advocating for a bigger systemic change, even though he does mention the workhouses and the debtors' prisons and all of that, but the message doesn't seem like let's dissolve the workhouses. It's more like these institutions are not good, so we should give to charity, and it's more about like the individual's contribution. That's my interpretation. Obviously, like some people disagree and they think that's a lot more progressive, but in my opinion, like this is the one that says change the system, and this is more like be a good person, comparatively, obviously. And on that note, with Christmas Carol, I want to also mention this book. This is a guide for Christmas Carol. It's written by Hayley Hughes, and basically that has a lot of like different kinds of analysis. We don't explicitly teach it because it is quite high level and requires the students to know a lot of other things. However, I personally teach this to some of my students separately. So I will have my GCSE students read it, or read specific chapters that apply to them and their interests and what they want to do. So for example, this has a chapter on how Christmas Carol is inspired by Dante's Inferno, or it will talk about how Christmas Carol is inspired by the book of Job from the Bible. So most students that you have will not have read Dante's Inferno. Some of them would have read the book of Job, so you know that, like, I had one student who's read Inferno. I had another student who decided to start possibly looking into Inferno because he saw the other one talking about it when I told him, like, read the Inferno chapter of this. Or like, there's a few always that I have that know the Bible really well, so I'm like, okay, so look at this bit about the book of Job and you can make these references. Or looking specifically how like childhood is presented, or looking at what else, how food is presented. That's a whole chapter on like poverty and food, and the potato famine and the poor laws and the corn laws. So looking at how that historical context impacted that. So I would say for teachers, absolutely read this one. This is actually good. Like, I had a lot of teacher books that I gave away, and I gave them either to other teachers or like the school library because I didn't want them. But this is one that I'm like, I don't even want to lend it. I have the kids read it in class, or like come back at break, come back at the end and read it then, or read it during intervention, because like I would be terrified. I have highlighted through this book. I have written annotations, I've written summaries that I've given to the kids as well. What I would say, the first half of the book, it's going over critical theories. If you've done a literature degree, this is basically summarizing everything that you should have done in a degree. So talking about like all of the different analytical theories, so classical theory, medieval, Renaissance, neoclassical, romantic, Marxism, formalism, psychoanalysis, structuralism, new criticism, archetypes, all of those things. So everything that is said here I've done in my degrees, but when it became in the second half specific to Christmas Carol, that's really helpful. And also there are like some pages where it shows how each of these theories applies specifically to Christmas Carol, and that's something that's more helpful to actually give the students and look through. These were the books that we actually teach. So the whole idea is, if you're teaching, then you would have heard about like a spiral curriculum and interleaving, and these are principles that if you hear something once, you forget about it. And let's say you heard it now, you start forgetting. If you hear it again, it goes back up, and then it goes like this. So if you want to keep something in the memory of the students, you need to go back to it. And the thing that we go back into are the themes. So we talk about like violence, bravery and wars from Private Peaceful in year 7, and then we will look at it in Romeo and Juliet, and we'll look at it in Othello, and we'll look at it in shorter stories throughout. They will come back in Macbeth, and that's the idea. Like, those themes are coming back, and every time you have something new to say and add to it. And then it's the same, like going around the spiral. So let's say here was violence and power, you go back and now we'll talk about violence and power again, but with something else, and then we'll talk about power again, and then we'll talk about power again. So by the end, when you're at your GCSEs, you've talked about it a lot. So that's the idea with the interleaving and the spiral curriculum. So you find your key themes. Ideally, you work backwards from your GCSE themes, what texts you're going to teach, and then you find texts that are appropriate from Key Stage 3 that touch on those themes and can develop as the students see them over and over again. Because next time you talk about violence, they know about World War I. They know about, like, are you justified to kill if you're a soldier? And then you go back and you talk about like, well, are you justified to kill in self-defense? Are you justified to kill if you are Macbeth, if you want to take power? Is power good or bad? Is it how you look at it? In the Crucible with like religion, is that enough justification? So it has some really good analysis throughout. So yeah. Okay, so I have talked for way too long, but I also enjoy doing that, and yeah, I want to do more of it. I want to do more of it. I would like people to comment, ideally, if you're a teacher and you're doing these books, or you have done these books, or you were considering these books, if you found this helpful, if you are a student and you are doing these books and you might have ideas about them, what you liked, what you didn't, if you agree with like the themes that I was saying. If you just like books, or if you are just curious about books, or if you're a parent and your kid is doing these books and you're wondering why we're doing them, what's the purpose, what are these stories, that is also valid to know. Or if you were going to study these books and you wanted to see like, how are these connected, or I'm studying this, but how is this leading to this other thing that we do? Or what's the thought process? Or if you want to make some schemes and you are thinking like, why do you teach these books, how do you pick them, why, all of those things. I hope there was something helpful for everybody. I hope that you will stay if you are on this channel, that you will subscribe, that you might want to hear me talk about more books as time goes past. I don't know what else to say. I'm happy that you were here. If you stayed up until the end, put a teacher emoji in the comments so I can see who stayed until the end. And if you stayed at any point and you heard all of this, thank you. If you are one of the OGs from 5 years ago, I hope that you will like these videos as well, that you read books, or you've been to school, you have kids that go to school, you want to hear more about that. And yeah, I'll do the heart. I used to do the heart in my old videos. And yeah, thank you for being here, thank you for coming back, and I will see you on my next video. Fingers crossed there will be another one. I will film another one now, but fingers crossed. Bye.